Well, hello. My name is Danny May. I live in Hamilton, Alabama, and I'm doing this video because a friend of mine said, I wish you would do that, if you would just tell what the Lord means to you. And I've watched several things on TV lately about people repairing furniture, they're restoring them, tools, lawnmowers, and they're all doing videos like this. And I thought, well, I'd like to tell what the Lord means to me. And we'll start back in 2017 when my wife was not feeling good, and she said, I'm going to go to the doctor, and she went, and the doctors told her that there was nothing wrong. They couldn't find anything wrong. And so she came home, and she said, I know something's wrong. So she called another doctor and made an appointment, went to see them, and then same thing. They said nothing was wrong. She was fine. So she went to one more and got the same response. They couldn't find anything wrong with her. So she got on her computer and began to look for a doctor. And I don't know why she found this doctor at St. Vincent in Birmingham. And she said, I think I'm going to make an appointment with her. And she did. And we went up there, and when she went in to see this doctor, that she told her, she said, sit down and tell me everything that's going on with you and what's happening. And so Jane sat down and began to tell her everything that was going on, what the doctors have said, the doctors that she had been to. And so, but anyway, everything was like she was telling her, the doctor, what had happened. But anyway, the doctor said, well, we're going to do this test, this test, this test. And she just kept naming things that they were going to do to check her out. And Jane said, well, when do I come back? She said, I'm not talking about you coming back. She said, I'm talking about today. Today we're going to find out what's wrong. And so it was getting on after lunch then a good while, and she said, well, it may be in the morning before we can get all of our tests back, but I'll call you in the morning. And Jane, when we left that day and we went, Jane said she won't call because doctors don't call you. But she did. She called Jane the next morning and did tell Jane that she had cancer, but she lost connection with Jane for some reason on the phone. And then she had my number, she called me, and she said, Mr. May, I'm sorry to tell you like this, but your wife has cancer. Well, I almost fell out of my chair because I just, I didn't want to hear something like that. But anyway, she said, can you be in Birmingham by 10 o'clock? And I said, well, no, ma'am, I don't think I can. By the time I get home and Jane gets ready, because we're 100 miles away, and it's going to take a little while for us to get there. And she said, well, can you be here by 11 o'clock? And I said, I think I can make it by 11. It'll be close, but we'll make it. So I went by over, my daughter lived in Winfield, about 21 miles away from here. And so Jane had already called her and told her that she had cancer. And so when I got home, Jane was almost ready. And she said, I need some fingernail polish. And so she said, I don't have any or what I want. So she called Dia and said, Dia, I need some fingernail polish. You got any? And Dia said, Mother, I'm sitting in the floor crying, and you're wanting fingernail polish. So anyway, she said she had the polish, and she'd bring it with her. So she went with us to Birmingham. And so when we got up there, we saw the doctor, and she explained to us about the cancer, and we're going to have to do a biopsy. And so she wanted us to go down to see the doctor that was going to do the biopsy. So we went down that day, and she explained to us, he was a lady doctor also, that it would be on a Monday. And so we went on Monday, and she went in the hospital to have the biopsy. And we were sitting in the waiting room, and she told us, she said, I'll come down when we get through, and I'll let you know. So in a little while, we've been waiting a good little while, and she came in, and she said, let's meet in the room over here. So we went over into a little room, and Jane's sister, my daughter, and myself. And she said, well, I hate to tell you, but Jane has appendiceal stage 4 cancer. Well, that just floored us all, and we had a tough time for a little bit. I just got up and stood looking out about the 5th or 6th floor window out of the hospital there, and just looked outside and couldn't think of what to say or anything. But anyway, we kind of gathered ourselves, and the doctor said she was going to get back upstairs. And I asked her, I said, well, have you told Jane yet that she has cancer? And she said, no. But when I get back, she should be about ready to come out of the waiting area. And so I said, well, if you will, let us know when she comes out so we can come up and see her. She said, I will. Well, it had been a little while, and I saw the doctor walking across the lobby there, so I ran and caught up with her and asked her, had she told Jane yet? And she said, I did. And I said, well, how was she? She said, well, she's fine. And she said, you can go up if you want to. And so Becky and Dia and myself all went upstairs, and Jane was just like Jane, ordinary Jane. And so I asked her how I'm fine. She said nothing about her cancer. And she said, well, I guess this is not what I wanted. But anyway, she was dismissed later that afternoon, pretty late that afternoon. And just before we got back on the expressway, I said, well, how are you? She said, well, that's not the diagnosis I wanted to hear, but this body is not mine. It belongs to the Lord. And so he can do whatever he wants to with it. So that's the way she was the whole time that she dealt with cancer. And I never saw her shed one tear about having cancer. The only time I saw a tear was when a cousin came to see her one day, and he shed a little tear, and she did too at that time, but that was the only one. I know one cousin called her from Illinois and started crying. She said, I can tell you right now, you can stop that crying. We don't need any crying. And so, but that's just the way she was. She was a very strong lady, and I loved her so much, and I miss her so much. But anyway, we kept going back to Birmingham once a week, and every 2 weeks to do the chemo and radio. We made 99 trips to Birmingham, which was 200 miles, well, 100 up and 100 back, every 2 weeks. And then for so long, and then she went for a scan one day, and they had an IV in her arm so they could put something in and do the scan. Well, when they finished the scan, one of the nurses came and got me, and she said, we're going to need to get Jane to the emergency room. And I cannot remember exactly why it was that they wanted her to go into the emergency room. So we got over there, and the nurse said, I left this port in her arm so that they might use it over here in the emergency room. So anyway, they got her into we got her a room in the emergency room, and stayed there for a little while, and they moved her to a room up on the on the cancer floor that they had there in the hospital. And we had a lady from Hamilton that we knew, and she had already got in the room. I said, well, how did you get here? And she said, well, they told me that she was coming to this room. But anyway, Jane was just like Jane. I never saw anything different in her. And but we did that for quite a while, and when they left her they left that port in the arm, and we had been there 3 days, I think, that she'd been in an emergency room, and this nurse came in and she said, why is that port still in your arm? And she said, well, they left it in there 3 days ago. And she said, oh my goodness. So she said, that's got to come out, and now. So they took it out, and it had infected, and they had to do surgery from her wrist all the way up above her elbow to get that infected vein out of her arm. So we got that done, and we came home, and we'd go back every so often. They couldn't do chemo right then because of the surgery, so we'd have to go back and get fluid drawn off. And we did that every other week for quite a while, and then it got down to every week. We would go to Birmingham and have fluid drawn off. And then they got to the point when she couldn't always control bodily functions, and so they said, well, we can't do this anymore, because if she had an accident in one of the rooms, we'd be out of that room, and it had to take a day to clean it up. So anyway, they stopped doing that, and we came home. And about 2 or 3 weeks, and then she had to go on hospice. And it was a tough time. And I don't know how a nurse does what they do, but that's caring for someone that's sick is a tough job. But I was doing the best I could, and I'd been up every night for about 3 weeks. And my sister-in-law said, well, I'm going to come spend with the night. And so Jane, Dia, my daughter, she said, well, I'm going to stay too. So they did, and she told me, she said, you go lay down, you need to rest. And so I went and lay down, and this was on December the 10th, I believe. And I went in and went to sleep, and I slept longer than I meant to. And when I woke up, I went to the bedroom where she was, and when I walked into the door, I knew that sound was not good because she had that rattle in her breathing. So she didn't need, I don't know, she didn't respond really to me as I talked to her. But I sat down at the foot of the bed and I began to pray. I said, Lord, please don't let her suffer. Take her home and help her. So anyway, with a little more, and I was still praying. Dia came in and she said, Daddy, have you told her that it's all right to go on home and be with the Lord? No, I haven't. She said, why don't you do that? So I got up and walked around the side of the bed, and I leaned over her. I kissed her. I said, I love you. I said, I'm going to miss you. But it's all right if you want to go on home and be with the Lord. So I think she nodded her head one time, and Dia thought so. And then she took one more breath, and then she went home to be with the Lord. Now I thought about a lot about that time that she went through, that how much I prayed. I prayed every day, all off and on, all day long for Jane. But I wondered why. Do I not know the Lord? Does he not want to answer my prayers? And I began to study a little bit about prayer. And I thought about some of the scriptures that I had looked at. John 14:14 says, if you ask anything in my name, I will do it. And several verses. When whatsoever you shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. And if you ask anything, I will do it. I've quoted these scriptures dozens of times. Why did I not get an answer? I've talked to people and they say, well, because it's the Lord's time. The Lord wants those. His timing is perfect, and he wanted her to come home, so that's why she came home. But then I began to wonder why those scriptures are in the Bible. Because it just seemed to me, if you ask anything in my name, I will do it. And I thought, well, I've asked for her to be well, but that didn't happen. So I have begun to think about it since then, since she passed away on December the 11th at 8 o'clock in the morning. She went home to be with the Lord. That when I was reading in John 15:5, it says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, bringeth forth much fruit. For without me you can do nothing. And so in John 15:7 it said, if you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you. So I began to think, am I abiding in Christ? Is his words abiding in me? Am I doing the words that he is putting in my heart? No, I was not. And I realized I was not doing the things that I should be doing for the Lord. I should have been going into the world. I should have been trying to reach people for the Lord. That's what we're supposed to be about. That's why Jesus saved us, to do just those things, that we can see and ask people to come to know the Lord. But I realize that now, and it took me a long time to do that. Now, I still miss Jane, and I still think a lot about her every day. But I'm not doing the things that I should be doing for the Lord. That's what I want to be doing. And I think it's in John 13, John 5:19 says, verily, verily, I say unto you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he seeth the Father do. Now I got to thinking, if Jesus couldn't do anything unless he saw the Father doing it, and he had to have the Father to do the things that he wanted done, and I don't know, it doesn't say anything about Jesus wanting to do something, we couldn't do it without doing the Father, but he said he could do nothing of himself, but what he seeth the Father do. So I began to think about John, am I abiding in the Lord? Am I doing what he wants to? Is his words in me? So I thought, well, he is not going to answer my voice unless I'm doing what he wants me to do. So that's just some of the things that has been on my mind since Jane passed away. Now this is a little video that I hope someone is out there seeing, and that maybe it'll bless you and help you to turn to the Lord and come to know him. And I think John, 1 Corinthians 7, if my people which are called by my name will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and heal their land. Now, if you notice, I left out one word out of that, and that word is then. If my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sins and will heal their land. So that's what we've got to be about. We've got to be about the Lord and doing what his will is. And my prayer is that if you're hearing my voice on this video, that you would do just that. Look to the Lord, trust in him in all thy ways, acknowledge him, and he'll direct your path. And I just pray that that would be your prayer, your wish also. I thank you for watching this video, and I'm going to do some more. It may be 2 weeks before I do another one, but I'm going to do another one. And I pray, if you would watch it and let me know. I'll have a video. You can email me. I'll put that on a video where you can email me. But anyway, thank you, and God bless you, and goodbye.